No Fish Productions. Chapter 7. Soul and the Flashback. The bottom floor of the guild was awash with noise. Evie and Soul were the last to return, and the other recruits were clustered in groups talking animatedly amongst themselves. They didn't notice the two as they entered the room. Soul sat down, with her back against the wall, and Evie sat down beside her. He then began to transfer the items from Spoink's bag into his own multi-pocketed satchel. "What was that you threw to me earlier?" "Oh, that was a sleep seed," he explained. He dug around in his bag and pulled out a variety of seeds. They each had a translucent yellow shell with conveniently color-coded cores. Green was sleep seed, yellow was stun seed, light blue was heal seed, pink was totter seed, dark blue was reviver seed, and orange was blast seed. Quite the plant life they must have around here to get seeds like that. A bell chimed, and Soul looked up to see a Kaimeko exit a doorway opposite the hall that led to the guild's rooms on the other side of the room. "Okay, everybody, dinner's ready!" The Kaimeko called out and quickly disappeared back into the room. There were literally shouts of joy as a herd of hungry, stampeding Pokemon, including Evie, rushed from the room as if their lives depended on it. Soul ended up at the back of the group, wondering what the hurry was all about. It wasn't as if the food was going to sprout legs and walk away in the few seconds it took to get to the dining room. A long, wooden table dominated the room, laden with bowls of fruits, nuts, and berries. Everyone took their places with Chatot at the head of the table, which Soul thought was rather presumptuous, until she saw Wigglytuff to the side, away from the table doing some sort of dance around a shiny red apple the size of Soul's head. By the time she took her place at the end of the table beside Evie, everyone else had already filled their plates and were practically inhaling food. There wasn't any conversation, no talk about the day, just an all-out, free-for-all chow down, where the slow went hungry. Soul grabbed what she could before it disappeared into the collective maw of the Pokemon. As the food supply dwindled, she even had to guard against the stray hands of particularly bold Pokemon seeking to steal her meal. When the last bowl was picked clean, everyone headed off straight from the dining room to the dorm rooms, hollering out good nights as they settled down into their beds. Evie entered his room with Soul and plopped down tirely on his bed. "Today was pretty hectic with everything we went through, wasn't it? But I'm glad our first job turned out so well. By the way, are you feeling all right? You didn't eat much at dinner." "No, nothing wrong with my appetite. Or anyone else's for that matter," Soul said with a laugh. "I'm not used to having to compete for my food. Was that normal when it comes to eating with Pokemon?" "Pretty much. I never considered all the differences between a human and being a Pokemon. A few things would take some getting used to. I'll manage. But for now, let's get some sleep. If tomorrow is anything like today, we're going to need our rest." Up and at 'em! It's morning!
Once again, Loudred's all-too-loud voice hit Soul like a load of bricks, and she woke with a start. Her hand fumbled about, searching in vain for something she could throw at him. Evie and Soul joined the lineup outside the guild rooms. The apprentices, Wigglytuff, awake this time, as far as Soul could tell, and Chatot were already there, and they started off with morning cheers. After, the Pokemon ran off to whichever job they happened to have, while Evie and Soul followed Chatot up to the second floor. The guild's second made no mention of yesterday's confrontation, nor did he act any differently. This was fine by Soul, who in retrospect had to admit that it probably wasn't the smartest idea to antagonize the second most powerful person in the guild on the very first day of training. Making enemies before having any friends would end badly. Chatot led them to the bulletin board on the right side of the room, near to a wide booth where Kaimeko worked on some unknown task. Today, we'll have you do a job listed on the side, he declared, with a hint of self-satisfied smirk, which made Soul uneasy. How is it different from the board on the other side? She asked cautiously and took a closer look. Pages with pictures of various Pokemon were pinned to the board. The footprint runes beneath the picture revealed nothing to Soul, but she was starting to get a sneaking suspicion that Chatot hadn't forgotten about yesterday's threat so quickly, and they were about to pay the price. The Pokemon posted here are outlaws, Chatot said with a dramatic pause, his voice filled with barely contained glee. They're all shady characters, and they're wanted for committing various crimes. So there are bounties on their heads. There are so many aggressive Pokemon around these days that everyone's finding it hard to keep up with the problem. And that's where you come in! Eevee was nearing a nervous breakdown by this point, trembling on the verge of tears. We're supposed to go catch outlaws? No way! That's not possible! They're dangerous, and what if something happens? What are we supposed to do then? No. It'll all go wrong. We'll get beat up, they'll steal our stuff, and then we'll get lost without any food, and then I'll fall down a hole, and by the time Soul gets to me, it'll be dark, and... Eevee babbled on for a long while, describing in detail how they were doomed to failure, and ended this tirade with the two of them dying of thirst at the bottom of a ravine and their bodies not being found for days. It would seem that Eevee had an imagination to go along with his phobia. Thanks for the vote of confidence, partner. It's all part of your training. You'll work through it, I'm sure. But I suppose you need to be prepared to confront a tough opponent, so I'll have someone give you a tour of the facilities. Chatot turned and shouted down the ladder. Hey, Bidoof! Bidoof! A minute later, a heavily breathing beaver Pokemon climbed up the ladder. He took a moment to catch his breath, and then said, Ugh, you cold? Ah, Bidoof. These are the new recruits that just joined us. Take them and show them around town, and then help them to pick out a bounty to fulfill. Yes, sirree! By golly, I'll do just that. Yup. Bidoof said, far too excited considering two newbies just got dumped on him. This is Bidoof. He's one of your fellow apprentices. I want you to pay attention to what he has to say and follow his orders. Off you go. With that, Chatot strutted off and Bidoof turned to the new recruits. Soul could have sworn there were actual tears in his eyes. Oh, shucks! I'm overjoyed! Yep, those were definitely tears. Why's that? I'm glad to have members junior to me. Before you all signed on, I was the most recent rookie. I'm overcome right now. I might just blubber with happiness. Please don't, Soul said. She wasn't entirely sure what blubber meant as a verb, but she didn't want to see it. And is it so bad being a newbie around here that you're reduced to tears when someone else comes along? What? By golly, no! It's just great to have junior people to have to pass knowledge to. The others really helped me when I was new, and I thought, shucks, I've given you all the wrong impression now, haven't I? I'd best just show you around before I mess up again. He led them down to the bottom floor of the guild. This room is where we hold all the guild meetings and such. Bidoof pointed out 3 doorways, one leading to the mess hall, one to the crew rooms, and the last to the guildmaster's quarters. Then he pointed out a booth with a large, empty cauldron where a Krogunk worked. Here we have Krogunk. but to tell the truth, I don't have any idea what the Pokemon's up to. He seems to be fiddling around with that big cauldron back there. It's all a mystery to me. Yup. And I'm sure a lot of things are a mystery to you, Soul thought. And then, wow, I really am a bit of a jerk, aren't I? As Bidoof led them out of the guild and down the western path to the town, she tried and failed to suppress the bitch part of her brain when she thought that maybe it was her and Eevee that got saddled with Bidoof instead of the other way around. Again, wow. Was I like this before, or did it come with the memory loss? Now here we are in Treasure Town, Bidoof announced as he gestured to the surrounding buildings and stalls, all painted in bright colors and most shaped to resemble a certain Pokemon. You can find just about anything here. Oh, I can tell you about Treasure Town too, Eevee began, and cheerfully pointed out the various establishments, his earlier near breakdown just a memory. It was rather odd to see how quickly Eevee bounced around from one emotion to the next. To be nearly in tears one moment and downright cheerful the next. Yes, sirree! You do know a lot about the town. Well, I'll be waiting back at the guild when you lot are done here and help you pick out an outlaw. By golly, you must have really impressed Chatot to have moved on to the second board already. It was months before I was even allowed to consider taking a bounty. I think it was less about how much we impressed him and more about how much I pissed him off, Soul muttered under her breath as Bidoof disappeared down the path to the guild. Okay, let's go. I'd like to see what kinds of items are available at the Kecleon market. Right, lead the way. The market featured a wide assortment of goods set out on display under the watchful eyes of two Kecleon brothers. The one with the dark green skin was called Grex. The one with the light, almost blue shine was called Boln. Amidst descriptions of their must-have items, they told them that everyone just referred to them collectively as the Kecleon brothers. Because we're never far apart. Now what do you think of these apples? Freshly picked, and you'll never find any juicier. Unabashed hawking of wares aside, Soul liked the brothers. They were always either echoing each other like a pair of sycophants, or they bickered in a good-natured way. Back and forth they'd go, praising a certain item together before disagreeing on some minor detail before cycling back again. It was rather fun to watch. Soul scanned through the wares as Eevee chatted with the Kecleons about luminous or something or other and evolving. Whatever that meant. Until her eyes landed on a length of polished cherry wood, the ends capped with bits of metal. She lifted the staff off the table. It was strong, solid wood, smooth, and unblemished. Holding it felt good. Almost familiar. Something niggled in the back of her mind. And then, she stood in the center of a barren field. Vague shapes approached from all sides. Obscured as they were, she couldn't make out just what they were. But she knew without a doubt they were here for her. A feral grin spread across her features, and she twirled the white staff in her hands with expert precision, the blades on its ends flashing in the dim light. They could try to bring her down, and they would fail. Soul blinked, and the moment was gone. What was that? A memory? What did it mean? She looked at the cherry staff in her hands. Whatever the case, she wanted this staff. And then she saw the price tag. What? That much for a stick? I could lop a branch off a tree for free. What kind of craftsmanship would that have?
Boln asked as the two merchants walked over.
That is specially treated wood from a forest far from here, crafted by a shift tree hermit who excels at woodworking. I assure you, it is well worth the price.
With some regret, Sol returned the staff to the table. Worth it or not, she didn't have nearly enough money to pay for it.
Misters Kecleon!
Two little blue Pokemon ran up the road to the market.
Ah, little Meryl and Azrael. Welcome, my young friends.
Hello. May I buy an apple? The smallest one, Azrael, said.
Of course.
Boln filled a brown paper bag and gave it to the kids. They skipped off happily down the road after paying.
Those delightful children are brothers. Lately, their poor mother has fallen sick. So those youngsters come and do the shopping, as well as other errands. Though very young, they've stepped up and taken charge.
Misters Kecleon! Meryl and Azrael rushed back. There was an extra apple in the bag. We didn't pay for this many.
Oh, yes. That, young friends, is a gift from me and my brother. Please, share it amongst yourselves and do enjoy.
That was a nice change. Since awakening on the beach, Sol had met too many petty and selfish Pokemon. Chatot. It was nice to see some honesty and generosity for a change, even if it was a bit too sickeningly sweet for Sol's taste. Yay! Thank you, Mr. Kecleon. And Mr. Kecleon.
Oh, not to worry, my friends. Do take care on your way home.
The two set off again, only for Azrael to trip and fall, the apples spilling from the bag. Sol scooped them up off the ground. Sorry to bother you. Thanks, Azrael said as he picked himself up off the ground and took back the fruits. No problem, Sol began, but stopped as her hand brushed the other Pokemons, and she was hit with a wave of dizziness. She stumbled back. What was... Another wave, stronger this time. A dizzy spell, or... A third wave crashed over her, making her knees weak. Suddenly, her vision turned black. Don't tell me I have a brain tumor on top of everything else. A bright, white light pierced the darkness and consumed her sight, and she heard the distinct sound of someone screaming for help. Hey guys, thanks for watching. We actually have a lot of new content coming up. Not just Soul of the Mystery Dungeon, but also a new original story made by us. We also have other video ideas that we're going to be posting in the future. We're really excited. So consider subscribing so you can see all that when it comes out. Or, better yet, you probably didn't know, we have a Discord server as well as a Twitter. So give us a follow on Twitter or join our Discord server and be a part of the conversation. Was that too generic of an outro for you? Do I have to say something funny now? Funny sounds? Eh? Okay. That was cringe.